Okay, welcome back. I just finished my Sir Philip Sidney poems. I'm going to go ahead and film the pastoral poems actually a day early, which, I would love to be more on top of these, but it has been kind of difficult. But I came in at 5:30 a.m. to film these today. So I got some extra time, so I figured I might as well knock them out because, 5:30 is kind of early for most people. My beard, again, is forking like crazy. I'm getting this crazy Viking beard going. All right, well, you know, I'm not yet to put a hair scrunchie in my beard. That's just something screams no. All right, so we're going to be on page 264 to start. Let's look at some of the basics of pastoral poetry before we get going. All right, so and I'm reading directly from your book here. It says works in the pastoral tradition in poetry or prose celebrate the pleasures of country life. This tradition, dating back to ancient Greece, was developed by authors writing for an urban audience. These conventions of the pastoral allowed city dwellers to imagine a country life. Now, today, there's no real purpose for this because, even at the, at least, okay, let me back up. There is still a purpose for it. If you live in New York City and you're, poor and you live in a very rundown urban neighborhood, for example, you may never get to actually travel to the countryside or very rarely. Now, we do have phones, and if you want to look up what a farm, you can do that and look at pictures all day. That is something that they didn't have. So really, pastoral poetry is not done much today because, well, it's not as necessary. But in this time period where we're looking at, so we're looking again in the 16th century, mainly bleeding into the 17th. You have cities that are filled with, pollution, not, you got to think all these conveniences that we take for granted today, like, the sewers we have, garbage pickup, things like that, were absent or lacking in these time periods. So, they were surrounded by filth all day long. And so to think about this idyllic country imagery where, there's sunshine and nature and, fresh air and all of this was just an escape for these people, to be honest with you. So that's what pastoral poetry was about. It wasn't written for country people; it was written for city people who didn't get to experience that. It says there's three. Your book gives us anyway three main things you want to look for in pastoral poetry. You want to look for shepherds who are addressing or describing their beloved, who's a shepherdess typically. Although we don't really know that for sure, but you do typically have shepherds, which are kind of emblematic of country life in this time period. There's a natural setting that seems perfect in every respect, and particularly the first poem we're going to look at makes it seem like living out in the country is nothing but beautiful scenery and good times. Finally, you'll say simple pleasures and games, including singing contests, which we don't really see in this, but this idea of simple pleasures is quite apparent in it. And the idea being that you enjoy things, even the smallest things out here, while in the city, everything's a chore. Today's world, everything's a chore. Really, there is probably a market for a pastoral poetry if you focus less on the setting and more on the enjoying simple things, because we don't know anything about that today. We're always pushing for the next big thing, and simple things are just completely ignored. So I guess there is maybe a market for it. Some of y'all get out there and write some good pastoral poetry, all right? We can't count on Mr. Morris. I can't finish anything. So, all right, so knowing this, let's take a look at page 266, and we're going to read The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe, who writes at the same time as Shakespeare and often gets credit in some of the conspiracy theories for writing some of Shakespeare's work. I love Shakespeare. I think Marlowe might be better as a writer. I really look up to him and think he's a terrific writer. Crazy Life. Look up some stuff about him and read a little about his life. He's definitely an interesting person. Okay. Okay, so let's look at page 266. And again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stanzas here, and there's 4 lines in each, so those are called a quatrain. By looking at them, you can see they have very similar length in the lines, which means they probably have a very defined meter, which poetry in this time would. Blank and free verse really aren't a thing until the 19th century. I mean, I'm sure they existed, but they weren't really looked up to. And honestly, I still don't particularly like them. But, that's there. We see a really simple rhyme scheme. It's got an A, A, B, B, C, C, D, D setup as it goes through, and continuing that pattern all the way through. Lines 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 in each stanza rhyme. So you have a pair of rhymes. Very simple setup. Simple doesn't mean bad. Simple doesn't mean easy, though. Remember that, okay? At least not in poetry. I know simple and easy are kind of synonyms. They're not in poetry always. All right, so let's see what we've got here. He says, "Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove that valleys, groves, hills, and fields, woods, or steepy mountain yields." So he starts right off away with that very first line, introducing what he wants. He wants this girl to come live with him and be his love. Now, not technically a marriage proposal. I want to point that out. It's more like, hey, let's live together. This guy's picking up his girlfriend. He wants her to move in with him. And he says, and what we'll do if we do is we'll enjoy all the beauty that nature has to offer. He says, we will, stanza 2, and we will sit upon the rocks, seeing the shepherds feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. So now he's talking. Now, honestly, the middle part here, stanzas 2, 3, 4, and 5, are all going to be just that talking about nature and about enjoying the everyday basics of life. Okay. So here he's talking about sitting on the rocks and watching shepherds tend their flocks. Now, notice again here the wording. He's not, we're going to tend our flocks. We're going to watch other people tend their flocks. Sit by some rivers and listen to birds sing. These are all things that nature provides us even today, but most of us don't pay much attention to it. And that's kind of this beauty of the simple pleasures in life. Okay. All right, stanza 3. And I will make thee beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle embroidered all with leaves of myrtle. So he's like, I'm gonna, again, this is that very I don't want to say stereotypical. That's not the word. It's very, again, I used this word earlier, but I'm going to use it again. This very idyllic imagery of country life, of, a bed of roses, which, by the way, if you ever made a bed out of roses and had people lay on it, that's not comfortable. Okay. I can't imagine it would be. So this stuff isn't practical in any way, shape, or form, which is why the next poem, actually, that we're going to look at was written, was to show the lack of practicality here. All right, stanza 4, he says, a gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold with buckles of the purest gold. So he talks about, using the wool from their lambs to make, robes and clothing from. And he even talks about buckles of gold for her slippers, which real quick, just want to point out, I'm not sure where a shepherd's getting gold, which is kind of the point here, or the problem that our next author, Sir Walter Raleigh, is going to see with this, with stanzas 4 and 5, is the shepherd's not got access, and not easy access, to gold. And look at stanza 5. A belt of straw and ivy buds with coral clasps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. And again, the jeweled elements here, where are these coming from? But he's promising her the moon right now, guys. He's promising her an easy, comfortable, not exciting maybe, but a pleasant life. That come live with me and be my love is repeated here, which kind of would bookend. But we have one more stanza here. I think it's only one more. Yeah, it's one more. It says, the shepherd swain shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If these delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. So now instead of come live with me, it's then live with me. So that's our final line. And now he's pointing out, we're going to sit there and the shepherds and all these other country folk are going to sing to us each morning. And hopefully, if all of these things meet with your approval, then you should come and live with me. So he apparently thinks he's going to be living in a musical where everyone wakes up every morning and sings about how great the morning is, unlike what most of us deal with in the mornings, which is, family who are angry to have to be awake and just want to, complain about every single thing that happens. So it's a beautiful image, what he's presenting here. You can see the pastoral elements. You see the nature imagery. You see the shepherd. You see the beauty of simple life and the country life. Which, by the way, if you're a more jaded human being like I tend to be, as you were reading this or as you're hearing it for the first time, it's like that's not what it's like to live in the country. This guy's crazy. I mean, this is not an easy life, and that is what inspired our next poem. So flip over to page 268. So Sir Walter Raleigh writes a poem called The Nymph's Reply to the Shepherd. So Sir Walter Raleigh is going to say, you know what? I'm going to pretend to be writing from the perspective of this girl and respond to this guy's poem. And this is the practical element of it. So I wouldn't necessarily call this a pastoral poem. It's a response to one. He's not really going to focus on the same things, but he does focus on some very realistic things, okay? So let's see what he says. Again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stanzas, 6 quatrains, 4-line stanzas. Looks like similar rhyme scheme, similar meter. So he's really taking the pattern that was given to him, and now he's going to do a response. So really interesting response. Says, if all the world and love were young, and truth in every shepherd's tongue, these petty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. So right away, you imagine this his girl, the shepherd's girlfriend is delivering these lines. She says, if all of this, if the world and love were young, if things were as simple as you're presenting them, and I could trust everything you say, then, and it's pretty, not petty. I read that wrong. These pretty pleasures might me move to live with thee and be thy love. So she says, if those things were true, then sure, this might work. But guys, that word if carries a lot of weight, doesn't it? So now we know that that's probably not going to be the case. She says, time drives the flocks from field to fold when rivers rage and rocks grow cold. And Philomel becometh dumb. The rest complains of cares to come. So she's taking like his stanzas and what he claimed in them, and she's saying, here's what the reality of it is. She points out that, um, flocks move around. We can't get up every morning and watch these sheep, and winter comes, and that's a problem. And Philomel references the bird. She says, and birds oftentimes leave and don't sing. What are we going to do in the tough times? Is kind of the indication we're getting here. So the flowers do fade, and wanton fields to wayward winter reckoning yields. A honey tongue and a heart of gall is fancy spring, but sorrows fall. Again, she's pointing to the fact that you're describing something that can't last. It's beautiful for a day, it's beautiful for a week, but then there's reality to deal with. We have to deal with the fact that the weather gets cold. And of course, they're writing in England, so it gets brutally cold. Not this cold that we're seeing here, where you guys are acting like 40 degrees is going to murder you. Okay? It says, thy gowns, thy shoes, thy bed of roses, thy cap, thy kirtle, and thy posy soon break, soon wither, soon forgotten, in folly ripe, in reason rotten. She points out the fact that clothes and beds made out of plants don't really last, and then eventually become they rot. To be honest with you, so thy belt of straw and ivy buds, thy coral clasps and amber studs, all these in me no means can they move to come to live to thee and be thy love. So she's letting him down hard here. She's not even she's just dropping the guy. She's like, look, all this stuff you promised, no way does it convince me that I need to be with you. She's just telling you it's not enough, basically. All right, last stanza. But, and again, that word has so much weight. But could youth last and love still breed, has joy no date, nor age no need, then these delights my mind might move to live with thee and be thy love. She says she's giving him a little bit of a ray of hope here. She's like, hey, but look, if being young could last forever, or if the springtime or the summertime would last forever, and our love could be contained by hanging out by the river, listening to birds sing forever, then yeah, this might be nice. But she's pointing out it's imaginary and it won't work. All right, so that's a little dose of pastoral poetry and reply poetry. The pastoral being the first one, reply poetry being the second one. Stuff like this still occurs where people will write stuff and someone else will write a response that kind of points to the flaws in the thinking. The first poem, Marlowe's poem, is very, romanticized. It romanticizes country life. It romanticizes youth. And then Raleigh, who's the explorer you may have studied in history, who, jack of all trades, this guy. But he is pointing to the fact that the practicality of life, the realism. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that gets us through these two poems. I know that was short. You're looking at the timer right here. It's been about 14 minutes. What do we do the rest of class? Well, we talked about stuff, especially the questions at the end. Now, we're not going to do them in class. I'm not a do the questions at the end of the story type of guy, but we're going to look at them a little bit to kind of give us some more discussion. I'm really trying to build that getting people to talk about poems, because this is what I really loved about college, was the ability to sit and talk with my professors and my classmates about the things we read and what the authors do. Because, guys, we could really break down line by line all sorts of things these guys are doing beyond just the surface level we're hitting right here. Okay. All right. Well, I think that'll be a good stopping point. I hope you guys, enjoyed Marlowe particularly. The Raleigh poem, I think, is funny and clever. I think that and this isn't Marlowe's best work by any stretch, but I do find both of these to be fun to teach, and I really like them. Coming up, we'll have Shakespeare, and I'm going to love teaching that. So I am going to wait and make those videos later, though. So this will be my stopping point for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you again for stopping by and listening, and trying to learn a little bit, even though it may seem to be difficult. It may seem to be ponderous. It may seem to be pointless to some of you, but I promise you, learning to unlock meaning in words is never going to be a waste of time, no matter what you do for a living, no matter where you end up in the future. It's a useful skill, I promise. All right. Okay, guys. Well, having a wonderful day, evening, wherever it is you're watching this. I hope you're safe, and I hope that you're staying warm, despite me making fun of Alabama people and how 40-degree weather makes them feel like they're going to freeze. I hope you're all safe and warm. All right. Okay, guys. Take care.